Well, combating homelessness with compassion. That's what we're going to unpack this time on the Military Wire. And I will say that there's hardly a city in America right now that is not struggling with this rising population of homelessness, whether it's drugs, crime, trash. All this stuff is turning these, what used to be destination cities, into less than desirable cities to visit anymore. And some of these individuals who are living on the streets, typically 1 out of 4, are U.S. veterans. But regardless of whether they're veterans or not, they are still humans. So what can we do to stop it? What can we do to stop this issue of homelessness and help these men and women turn their lives around and get back on a pathway to success? So on this edition of the Military Wire, we've got Pastor Rick Cole, who is a senior pastor at Capital Christian Center in Sacramento. And he's going to help us address what we can do to combat homelessness with compassion. So welcome to this edition of the Military Wire with Mike Schindler. I am Mike Schindler, and this is the podcast where we interview some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country in uniform. And we tell their stories in hopes that you will gain an aha moment that you can apply to your own life and move yourself forward. So before I get rolling and introduce Pastor Rick, I got to put a shout out to our friends at Bone Frog Cellars and Bone Frog Coffee, founded by my friend, Lieutenant Commander Tim Cruikshank, who served 25 years in the Navy SEALs. I think you guys know this story. But he's got a great coffee company and a great cellars company, wine company. A portion of those proceeds go to help the families of fallen SEALs. So be sure you support those guys. So, Pastor Rick Cole, welcome to the Military Wire.
Thank you, Mike. Really a pleasure and a privilege to be with you today.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing on the front lines. Now, I know that you never served in uniform, and I think our audience knows that sometimes we have folks that do not serve in uniform on the show because you are talking about something that is very relevant. And I want to read this. This is a quote out of your book that we'll feature and we'll highlight on this, but that says, quote, "On the streets, I found that I wasn't just wrong in various ways about broken people. I was wrong in layers." Mm-hmm. This is so interesting to me. So in 2014, you, the leader of a Northern California megachurch, lived on the streets of Sacramento for a number of weeks to raise money for a homeless program, and it changed your life forever. So I before we get into that, because this is so compelling to me, I want to set the stage for our viewers so they understand who you are. So can you explain to us who you are and what you're all about, Pastor?
Yeah. I was born into a pastor's family. My dad pastored all of my years growing up. In fact, he built the church that I now pastor, and I followed him after he retired. And so my father pastored here for 17. Now I'm in my 26th year. So it's been over 40 years that this church here in Sacramento has been kind of in my family line. And we have about 3,500 people on a weekend, and a private school here from preschool through 12th grade with full programs. And we really do our best to make a outreach into the community, make our community, elevate the values in our community for people. And we have a lot of passion to try to help people that are broken in the journey.
Yeah, it's I love that, because I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine this morning where I said, once the church being the body, once the church as an organization to realize they are part of the solution, boy, just think of all the problems we could solve in our local communities. I mean, I think you guys are like forward operating bases in your communities. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got a community. Your job is to help solve problems there. I want to unpack. I want to unpack your quote on the streets that I found. I wasn't just wrong in various ways about broken people. I was wrong in layers. Explain that quote to me.
I look back in my own personal journey, and I can think of times when I look at homeless people, I could easily disregard them and think poorly of them. People holding up signs, or you often, I think, picture the homeless that are in that mentally ill category and kind of paint a broad brush. And sometimes I've had thoughts like, man, they got themselves in this problem. Why don't they work at getting themselves out of it, get a job? They're living off my taxes. And these are, pretty common thoughts. And when I have those thoughts now, I don't think of them as far as if someone still has those thoughts, trying to put anybody down. That's never my intention, because that was me. I think this is where I was wrong in layers. When I went actually among the homeless and started humanizing them, in the sense that I didn't have anything. I didn't have a calendar when I was out there for 3 weeks on the streets. I didn't have any job responsibilities. My whole mission was, I want to try to find out what homeless people do. Where do they go? What's a day like?
Yeah.
Why are they here? What can I do to just see the world through their eyes? I've never even thought of doing that before. And the effort was made initially because we needed to raise some awareness and funding for a particular program we were involved with our city, trying to help a homeless outreach. And that was the intent of it. Maybe I can raise some awareness. And it went from a project of trying to raise awareness and money to, this is affecting me personally, internally. And I'm beginning to see things from a different point of view. And it's changing my outlook on who these people are.
Yeah. Yeah. You break this down in your book, Incarnate, Jesus Among the Broken, which catalogs your experience. It's very well done. What did you find out? Why do people end up homeless? I mean, this is pretty interesting, because I will admit, I've driven by those signs too, Pastor, and I have said, listen, when things got bad, I was out there scrubbing toilets. I was doing things that needed to, just whatever, to put money on the table. And why can't these guys do the same? So why do they end up homeless?
Yeah. That's where trying to sit down and talk with people and find out their story. Yeah. It's not everybody's story is unique to them. Yeah. And where there is mental illness, that's a whole one of those layers that's really deep. And it's really difficult to help people who have mental illness issues. There really does need to be an institutionalized kind of a program if that person's going to get the kind of help that they need. They're really hard to move the needle. There are others. The next layer to me is addictive behaviors, drugs and alcohol. And I think, sometimes you know more about the challenge with the veterans in our society who've given themselves for our country and then sometimes not treated, with respect and such, and how things can devolve into, trying to self-medicate and drugs and alcohol. I don't think it's ever the intention for someone to take themselves down. It's just kind of a go-to place where people are trying to find a way to find peace, a way to find, get the pain out of my life. So that happens, and people that are in addictive behaviors really need some help to get into rehab. And they can, if they get through rehab, they can really totally transform their journey. Another layer is people that, just legitimately, they were working, living kind of close to the margins on, paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. A job loss in kind of the world we live in now. There's a lot of that. And if they didn't have a network of family that could come alongside, sometimes people can go stay with a family member for a while. If some people don't have that opportunity, where do they go? They end up on the street. They may still have their full faculty, and they might be closer to the next step, like easier to help that person. Because they're not that far down, and come alongside and help them find another job opportunity, and they can kind of turn the corner pretty quickly. So to me, those are some of the layers that you find. What changed me, I think, internally, I was explaining my experience. The second week I was on the street, I connected with a few of my friends downtown, and they were just asking me to talk about it. I hadn't really downloaded the experience much, and it started getting real emotional for me, and it surprised me. And one of my friends said the word incarnate, and that's all he said, just one word. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He was like, well, that's what you've done. You've gone into someone else's world. You're living their life and seeing it through their eyes. And that's basically what Jesus did. I've learned in theology, in seminary, the word incarnate is the idea that Jesus, being God, came here into human form, and the incarnation that describes what he did. And I started thinking about that from just my job point of view. You know, I'm a minister and this is kind of my world. So I started thinking about, wow, when Jesus did that, he didn't say to me, hey, you got yourself in this problem. Why don't you get yourself out of it? He came and said, I'm here to help you out. I'm here to take your burden. And I'm here to change your way by taking your burden on myself. And I'm here to love you by coming alongside you. And that affected me. So now I'm thinking, like, if I could be somewhat like that, how can I be Jesus among the broken? Then I would be doing what he did in a way. I wouldn't be saying, hey, you got yourself in this problem. Why don't you get yourself out of it? Maybe I could say, man, I feel really bad for what you're going through. I see the humanity in that soul. You prefaced, I think, at the beginning of the talk here, of the value there is of our veterans, who they are, the preciousness of their soul. So I'm sitting with homeless people, and what hit me unexpectedly, I'm looking in the eyes of people who don't have it all together and don't even have the drive to figure out what to do next. And I started feeling compassion for them. I could see who they were really made to be. Like, God's image is in every person. Sometimes that gets buried and lost. If we can find it again and call that out, I found myself loving broken people in a way that I had walked past and not really thought about the value of who they are.
And it's almost like we all have to step in to their shoes at some point, because even though you're saying this, I'm still struggling with, wait a second, we give so much money towards this, this issue. I think in our neighboring county, the numbers, I've heard figures close to 50,000, if not up to 100,000 spent per homeless person to help them. And yet our homeless problem is only growing.
It is.
Right. So I almost feel like, it's a self-prophesying cycle that we're throwing more money and we're creating this issue. So clearly, and maybe it's not clearly, maybe I'm just, maybe I'm wrong in my thinking on this, but if we throw more money at it, the assumption is we're going to solve it, but it doesn't appear that we're solving it through more money. So what is the answer?
Yeah, that's really the question of the day. And I wish that I was here to, just answer that and say, here we go. Like
you had the magic pill, like, here it is. I figured it out. Yeah.
I'm in full agreement with your observation. Money doesn't solve it. There's more money being thrown at homelessness now than ever in human history. And the problem is growing. So here's just an example of one of the things that I'm working on presently. Where we are, our church property, we have about a 4-acre piece on our property that's undeveloped. And we're talking with our county, would it be possible to put a homeless village of sorts, like tiny homes, to make it not just tents? We've got right now, if I walk out my door, my office, there's probably 5 tents right across the street, right next to an overpass in a little valley of that overpass. Across the freeway, Folsom Boulevard, there's tents on the sidewalk. It's stunning what's happening right where I go to work every day. So we're talking to our county. They have the money actually to fund some projects. What if we put like 50 tiny homes on our property, and we have people who would volunteer? I've had people say to me, if you do something like that, I've got a company, I would love to do job training and move people into work. And the county has the money. We have the heart and the people. And to me, this is probably the magic pill, if there is one, is if we can match the money that's being thrown with persons who have a heart for broken people, and we can partner. Like, one of the challenges is the faith community and the government haven't really had a history of getting along that well.
Yeah.
And I find that there's more opportunity for synergy. we need to humanize one another. The people working in the government are just people.
Yeah.
And the systems get kind of broke in times, but could we somehow say, hey, we're in this together. You do your thing. Like, we're working with our county leaders right now, and they're actually in very much cooperation with the idea. And we're exploring the idea of this village. I think it would be potentially a model for what could be done in other places. The other thing is, I'm learning there are a few places around the country that have some prototypes that are working. I'm just actually in discovery of that. I'd like to go see a couple of them and see if somebody's doing an effective job. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. Is there something we can learn that can be replicated in other places? We need to learn from each other. We need to synergize a bit more.
Yep.
And that's part of my hope.
You know, it's Rhode Island, from what I'm told, and a little bit of research I did on Rhode Island's initiative of getting drugs off the street, getting homeless off the street. I think they were originally accused of not being very compassionate, but in fact, I viewed it as being, extremely compassionate.
Right.
As, they would give people the opportunity to clean themselves up. And if they didn't, it was almost like how my parents raised me. It's like,
Yeah.
You got two strikes. Like, the first one's a warning. The second one, you're going to jail, right?
Yep.
That's kind of Rhode Island's approach is, it's going to be a mandatory program that you're going to have to go through, and you're going to come out the other side. You might hate it, but you know what? It's the best way we can show you love.
Yeah.
And I would, and not that I'm an expert in the Bible by any stretch. I mean, I've got, it does sit on my desk, but
Nice.
I would say that I think that's compassion in a Jesus manner too. Would you agree with that, Pastor? And that,
Yes.
you got to be accountable.
Completely. Yeah, that's part of the journey too, where it's not a boundaryless world that's going to help anybody. There needs to be some structure, and we use the term sometimes tough love, where we're trying, there is a path, like we're trying to show that person that's in trouble a path, but this is the boundary you need to stay in to achieve it. If you can't do that, then I don't know if I can help you. And that is still loving. And hopefully the person gets to a place of going, maybe that option was better for me than the one I've chosen.
Yeah.
So, and definitely those are spiritual principles too, where I think Jesus always points us to the hope, but he doesn't make anybody take it. We've got the option. Accept the offer that's being given, or figure it out on your own. And if someone chooses that path, then there's not a whole lot one can do for them.
Yeah, I think there's consequences for both paths. Talk to us a little bit about Incarnate, Jesus Among the Broken. What do you want the reader to learn from this book? I mean, it's a great read, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I think kind of a core message for me from it is looking at people around me and humanizing everyone instead of labeling them, no matter what the label might be. We have such a divisive world right now.
Yeah.
We're divided on politics. We're divided on COVID protocols. It feels like, man, it's heavy. The kind of conflicts that it feels like we face relationally. And I think part of my message is I'm starting to see the people around me for their value and try to start there, not start with the conflict of our ideology, but start with the commonness of our humanity. So if there's somebody that's hurting, if I can appreciate their pain, even if I don't understand it or think somehow that they're responsible for it, they're still in pain. And I can feel that for them. And maybe there's a bridge that can be built to help that person, move forward. I sometimes think of this illustration. There's starfish that are washed up on the beach and they need to get back in the water. Somebody's walking by and is taking one and throwing it back in. And an observer is like, it's such a huge problem. You're not going to fix the problem. But that person says, I just fixed it for that one.
Yeah.
I changed the world for that one. To me, that's part of the message too. The problem is so huge, it seems impossible, and it's paralyzing sometimes. What can I do for that one? Is there someone I feel drawn to, someone I have a heart for? I can come alongside and maybe help that one take a next step, to me, that's changing the world one soul at a time.
Yeah.
And that's worth it. I think that's part of the message of it.
I love that. It resonates with me. I think that was something that, my mom and dad, told me. Is my dad always had these clever little things. I thought my dad was kind of goofy, but but he would say these little things that would just make me think, like, how do you change the world? And in my youth, I'd be like, oh my gosh, we got to do all these complicated things. And he goes, you change the world one person at a time.
Wow.
And it goes along with your starfish example, which is so perfect. And which you also spoke about resonates with me, which is, we might be divided in many areas, and I don't recall who originally said it, but it was like, find the 1% that you agree on and give that 100% of your effort.
Wow.
And from that, you'll begin to see that, well, you know what, there's other areas that you probably have alignment, but man, you gotta find that 1%. But we're sitting here trying to say, what, we've got to agree on everything, when in reality, no, let's just find the 1% we agree on, give that 100% of our effort, and let's see where we go with it. Your book is so good. What are some key things that individuals can do to really start to change the world for some of these people? I mean, we drive by homeless camps. I mean, I'm in the Seattle area, and I will tell you that, it reminds me of Chicago 10 years ago when I'd fly in there. Yeah. So, what can we do?
I was just in your city about 3 weeks ago and stayed downtown, and the Mariners were in town. I walked from the hotel about a mile. It just was a great day to walk. And on the walk, came by so many homeless tents right on street corners. So I just saw, what you see, and it's heartbreaking in so many ways, and still difficult to know what to do. I might just illustrate, maybe it's again, I think, hard to give concrete steps at times to people. To me, it's more of a heart change that I think I'm advocating for, is that we just see it different and care a little bit different, and then see what a day might hold. So I have a friend who leads a large construction company. They build roads, infrastructure for housing developments, bridges. It's a big company. It's been in our town here in Sacramento many years. And he's a great leader, CEO of the company. And I'm in a small group of just accountability with him. So we've become good friends. And through the journey that I've been on, he told me just recently, he said, it's something I want you to know, how I've changed my outlook on how I see people because of walking this journey with you. And I said, how so? He said, well, here's an example. Where he goes to work, he said, I sometimes see some homeless people. I would just bypass them. He said, now I actually take time occasionally to stop and find out who they are. And I listen to their story. I ask them their name. And he said, I've started to find a couple of people that I've actually gotten to know. And in the process of having these ongoing conversations, trying to find, is there a way to move them where they are? Maybe that's even a possibility to employ them in my company. He said, I'm thinking things I would have never thought before, and doing things I would have never done before. So it's not like, hey, somebody's on the street corner, give them some money. That's probably not going to change their world. But to humanize them and say, hey, who are you? And, here's a CEO of a huge company taking some time to stop and actually give value to these souls. And he said, it's changed me. He said, I feel better about myself. And I feel like there may be a way that I can help this person or these people that I keep bumping into. And I'm trying to find, is there a next step? He said in his company, he's actually teaching his management level people to see if they can do some job fairs that would introduce some of the homeless people that are more on the margins to job opportunities. They're thinking even in their company differently than they ever had. And he said, I feel really kind of energized about it. Still don't know what kind of outcomes we'll have, but I'm putting some effort and energy into that. So that's just one example, I think, of if it's a mindset change or a heart change, the next steps, I think, are up to every individual. Like someone's going to have a different idea better than anything I could suggest, because it's what comes out of their own heart and life.
I think it goes back to, I think what I'm getting from this is it really comes down to that starfish example that you use, right? It really is, humanizing that one person. And as you were talking, I was thinking through like, boy, I don't know the guy's name on the street corner.
Yeah.
Like maybe I should start there. Maybe I should, I'm always talking about, here God gives us the pages of, our book, right? Here's our book, write in your pages. And, there's other opportunities for people to write in my pages, but how am I writing in that guy's page? And will what I write in his page actually impact and improve his life?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the opportunity I need to be looking for. I think that's it. It's so good. So tell us how people can get your book, Incarnate, Jesus Among the Broken.
Sure. There's probably a couple avenues. One is incarnatebook.com has that site has opportunity there to access the book. Also, Amazon is a common place, and you can acquire the book on Amazon. There's bookstores that have the book in stock, but probably through technology, Amazon or incarnatebook.com. Those are the best places to go to acquire it.
Well, thank you, Pastor Rick Cole. I want to thank you for being on the Military Wire and sharing your story. And I know we just kind of touched the surface, but people can learn about your heart, your passion, your experience of living on the street in that book, Incarnate, Jesus Among the Broken.
Thank you, Mike. I might just say one last thing, maybe too. My uncle was in the military. He was an Army medic in Vietnam. So I've seen that, kind of close up and walked his journey. When he retired, he was 20-year military, became then a postal worker and carried the mail for another 20 years.
Wow.
Now he's retired fully, and I see him often, and my heart is so filled with respect for him, for how he served our country, both in the military and now still in the government, where he served the community, bringing the mail. And we've got such an amazing group of people in our country that have given everything they've got to make life better for me. I've got nothing but respect and really honor what you're doing to bring hope and life to our military.
Well, thank you for that, Pastor. It's, God gives us spheres of influence, and our job is to step into those and really work them. So I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the Military Wire. And for those who are looking to identify their next mission and purpose in life after that uniform comes off, be sure you reach out to us at Operation Military Family, and we'll connect you to somebody that can walk with you, be your battle buddy as you experience this new life after military service. So Pastor Rick Cole, thanks again for being on the Military Wire.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.